afternoon to everybody. This is Praveen Joseph, and I'm representing the Ingram Micro Cybersecurity team based here in Dubai. And on behalf of the entire team, I'm very, very excited to welcome you to our weekly free trainings that we are doing. The topic for today is blockchain, and we will be exploring the role of blockchain in cybercrime. Now, before we get into the training itself, I'd like to introduce ourselves in a little bit more detail. Ingram Micro is the largest technology distributor in the world, $50+ billion company with more than 35,000 employees in 50+ countries around the world. And we have operations in pretty much every country there is on the planet. So very, very large, vast global footprint and a very established organization. In the Middle East, we are based here in, we have offices in all the countries pretty much in the Middle East. And the headquarters is the building that you see right here in Dubai. The office is in Dubai Internet City. And from the cybersecurity perspective, the team is more than 3 years old. In fact, we are close to 4 years old by now when Ingram Micro started the cybersecurity division way back in 2016. And today we are an advanced cybersecurity solutions provider where we offer a lot of services as well as products, including discovery, virtual lab, etc. Overall holistic solutions around cybersecurity that we are offering to the market itself. Now, when I say we have a holistic service portfolio, this means that we are cutting across people, processes, as well as technology aspects of information systems. For people, we have a lot of trainings. This is a part of the business that I'm spearheading. We have trainings for different categories of audiences, those who are foundational in technology. We have foundational awareness trainings on cybersecurity, 2 very advanced cybersecurity trainings, including for CISSP or the CompTIA certifications, S+, N+, etc. From a privacy perspective, we are an authorized training provider on GDPR. We are authorized by the IAPP, which is a foremost privacy organization in the world. We also offer a lot of process-related services, including consultancies, managed security services, as well as technical assessments. And from the technology perspective, like I said, Ingram is the largest technology distributor on the planet. So pretty much any major cybersecurity vendor that you can think of, we are already distributing their solutions across the Middle East, Turkey, and Africa regions. Now, with that broad introduction being completed, let me welcome you once again to the training. This is the broad agenda that we have drawn up for today's training, where we will gain a fundamental understanding of the dark web and how it interconnects with the blockchain. Now, let me set the context before we jump into the agenda and the slides itself. Our intention in today's training is to appreciate blockchain as a concept, as a disruptor of multiple industries. And we'll also learn more about how transactions are executed in a blockchain network. We will focus predominantly on cryptocurrencies itself, because we are more interested in how these cryptocurrencies are fueling the economies of cyber criminals. So this is a broad overall intention that I have for today's training. Let me remind you that we are using Teams, which means we can see each other. You can unmute yourself. You can chat at any point of time. There is no restrictions at any point whatsoever. So feel free to type in your comments, your clarifications, questions at any point of time. If you feel you're in a noisy environment, just go ahead and type into the chat window. If not, you're most welcome to unmute yourself as well as ask your questions. Okay, so we're going to start with an understanding of the dark web. What is the dark web and why is it interesting? We will try to understand this first, and then we will jump into blockchain. Okay, so once we understand the dark web, we'll see how blockchain is actually going to fuel the cyber criminal economy on the dark web itself. All right, and then we will understand cryptocurrencies and how they are actually helping cyber criminals to send and receive payments on the dark web. The last part of today's training is where we will perform enterprise defense strategy. We will understand what are the steps that an organization needs to carry in order to stay safe when in the aftermath of cybercrime, as well as its increasing prominence, especially in the aftermath of COVID-19. So let's start with the dark web itself. Now, let me ask you a simple question. When was the last time that you searched for something on the internet? When was the last time you Googled something? Maybe it was 5 minutes ago, maybe it was 10 minutes ago, maybe it was yesterday. It doesn't matter. But the process that unfolds every time you search for something on a search engine, have you ever thought about this? We do Googling, we do searching on the internet almost instinctively. We rarely spend a second thought or spare a second thought towards how does the process actually get executed. Every time you search for something on Google, what it does is there are pre-programmed algorithms within the search engine itself, which span across the so-called public layers of the internet. Web pages which host content, which are available for everybody to see on the internet with no restrictions whatsoever. So if you're going to Google what is the capital of Turkey, for example, you're going to get very accurate results based on public resources, like, for example, Wikipedia. These are web pages which are open and available for the entire world on the internet to see. If, for example, you send your friend an email that says the capital of Turkey is Ankara, or any other city for that matter, these contents of your emails are not going to be searchable by the public. Messages that you send and receive over, for example, an email is supposed to be encrypted. It's supposed to be protected behind at least one layer of authentication, which is your username as well as your password. It's not for the whole world to see. This is the next layer of the internet, the so-called deep web. Okay, so this distinction between how people have to authenticate themselves to access information, although it's all right there on the same internet, this distinction is where we can define two layers, the surface web as well as the deep web. The surface web is the public information out there on the internet for anybody to access, anybody to make use of. The deep web is information which is protected by at least one layer of authentication. You created a closed group on Facebook and you added a couple of members and you start transacting, you start communicating with each other on this closed group on Facebook. This is ideally a deep web scenario, because whatever information you're exchanging here, it's not out there for the public world to see. But on the other hand, if you make it a public and open group, all settings are public on this particular Facebook group, it becomes the surface web itself, because you don't need any authentication, you don't need to bypass any restrictions. Anybody on the internet can see it. Now, let's take this level of authentication to the next layer, to the next level itself. If a cyber criminal wants to transact on the internet, and trust me, they do this, of course, how do they ensure that their identity is kept confidential? At the same time, their messages are being sent and received, the intentions of their communications are being carried out. Welcome to the dark web. The dark web is a layer of the internet. It's still the regular internet, by the way. It's just that information on these particular aspects of the internet cannot be accessed using regular methodologies that you and me are used to. Let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, in the UAE, where I'm speaking to you from, it is 100% illegal to access the dark web. So if you're in the country, if you're in the UAE, please refrain from doing so. If you're joining us from another part of the world, please check your local laws, because accessing the dark web is considered illegal in many countries. So it really depends on which part of the world you're connecting to the internet from. If you're connecting from a part of the world where it is legal, you can use browsers like Tor, the Onion router, which is a browser of choice when it comes to the dark web. Tor is a browser which is specifically designed for navigating web pages which are constructed for the dark web itself. All right. This browser works in a way which is different from your regular Chrome, your regular Internet Explorer, or Firefox. Let's try to understand how it works. Before that, we need to understand why is it that cyber criminals love the dark web. Now, assume that you are using the regular browser, like, for example, Chrome. You will end up sacrificing a lot of your privacy to the mega data-driven corporations of the world. In the case of Chrome, of course, I'm referring to Google. And whatever services you're using, like, for example, Facebook, Amazon, LinkedIn, WhatsApp, Skype, whatever it is, you will end up sacrificing a lot of your privacy over to these data-driven corporations, mega corporations. Privacy, in fact, happens to be a myth in today's context. Sorry. Now, a cyber criminal is someone who views all of this as completely opposing his or her business objectives. A cyber criminal wants to transact on the regular internet like you and me, but without sacrificing even 1% of their identity, 1% of their communications information being viewed by unauthorized entities. For this reason, they prefer to activate their transactions to act on the dark web itself. How does the dark web work? Now, assume that you are using a regular browser, like for example, Chrome on your laptop. You type in www.google.com. Depending upon your internet service provider, the request will go over the regular internet. It accesses the servers pertaining to google.com. The IP address, of course, has to get resolved, and then you will get the contents pertaining to www.google.com thrown onto your laptop within a matter of less than a second. Now, assume you type in a URL that looks like www.1380xyz whatever .onion. Type this on Chrome. Chrome will make no sense out of it, because for Chrome, the .onion domain name extension is not a legitimate domain name extension at all. We have .org, .au, .uk, .ae, etc., etc. But what is .onion? Chrome doesn't make any sense out of it. On the dark web, all web pages have the .onion extension. In order to access these web pages, you need a browser like Tor. You need browsers like Tor in order to access dark web pages. And guess how it works. Assume that you are the user who's typing in a message over here, www. this particular URL .onion. Your message will be going through your regular ISP, but it will access other users also who are using a Tor browser. So these other users, they will serve as intermediary hops. They have given up their browsers to act as routers. Their computers act as intermediary routers to facilitate transactions between other users on the Tor network. Does this concept sound familiar? This is exactly what peer-to-peer networking is all about, P2P. If you're familiar with the BitTorrents and the Kazas, the old day P2P file sharing platforms, of course, by the way, these are all 100% illegal. Individuals come together to form part of a network, and they store as well as share files, computing resources, anything with each other. And they will volunteer themselves up in order to service other individuals on the same network. In the same way, people who have downloaded Tor network, Tor browser, they will volunteer themselves to act as intermediary hops between source and destination of traffic packets routing on the Onion router network itself. Now, what is beautiful about this entire methodology is that every packet that is sent between the sender and the recipient, it will travel through as many as 6,000 hops, okay? And these hops are extremely random. Now, this is just the tip of the iceberg. What is more important is that for every single hop, the packet will get encrypted once. So if there are 6,000 hops, the packet is going to get encrypted as many as 6,000 times. Think about how much time you'll take reverse engineering, trying to decrypt this packet. It's next to impossible. This is the reason why anonymity is literally guaranteed when someone is accessing the dark web. For a cyber criminal, this is gold, because he or she can send and receive messages to their target recipients while still remaining untraceable. As a cyber criminal, they want to be completely untraceable. The dark web is giving them this particular facility. The dark web is not something which was conceived by cyber criminals themselves. In fact, it is a US military project. In fact, Tor was funded by the Department of Defense. It's just that the project gained a very, very massive foothold, and today it is a regular part of the internet itself, the dark web. Okay, so now that we've understood what the dark web is, let's park this for a minute and try to understand cryptocurrencies. Try to understand blockchain as well as cryptocurrencies. Now, the first question that many people have when we start talking about the subject is cryptocurrencies the same as blockchain? Before we get into the slides itself, let me explain this to you. Cryptocurrencies and blockchain are two different concepts, Blockchain is the framework. Cryptocurrency is just one implementation on top of this particular framework. It's just one of the many use cases for blockchain, to put it very simply. Okay. So before we start this, if you have any questions, let me just check. Feel free, please, to type them into the chat window, and we'll be checking periodically. Just type your questions here or unmute yourself at any point. We can take it up for discussion at any point of time. Okay. So we'll start with cryptocurrencies itself. Cryptocurrencies were invented by an individual called Satoshi Nakamoto back in 2008, when he or she published a paper explaining the concept of Bitcoin. Now, why did I say he or she? The reason is the real identity of this individual, Satoshi Nakamoto, it still remains a mystery. We don't know who the individual is, or if it's a group of individuals, we still don't know this information as of today. The first paper explaining Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies as a concept was published in 2008. The first Bitcoin exchange, called the Bitcoin market, was established in 2010, just 2 years later. So in 2 very, very short years, the concept gained recognition and it gained solid traction. Adoption increased massively, and in 2015, there were 1 billion blockchain transactions or Bitcoin transactions recorded every day by Settle UK. And 2019, just last year, was named the year of enterprise blockchain because there was a need for organizations to recognize the role that blockchain plays in disrupting their business processes and adopting the blockchain itself in order to enable these disruptive processes. Let me remind you, ladies and gentlemen, next week we will be doing a session on digital transformation. We will be exploring the security risks of digital transformation. Why did I highlight this now? Because digital transformation, whether we like it or not, it is inevitable. It is inevitable because change is the only constant that we can be sure of when it comes to business. Think about the case of Nokia, of Kodak, of BlackBerry. All of these are companies who failed to wake up to changes and disruptive trends within their respective industries. Today, they are not as powerful as they used to be before. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let me remind you, please, if you're not speaking, remain on mute. If not, feel free to unmute yourselves and to speak. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So digital transformation, like I was telling you, whether we like it or not, it is the need of the hour. Only those organizations that recognize these trends, disruptive trends to their respective sectors, and do something about it, only these companies are going to outlive their peers. When it comes to banking, blockchain is one of the key disruptors. It is not to be seen as a threat, rather it should be seen as an opportunity. Banks have to rise to the occasion and see how they can deploy blockchain to better their customers' experience on their respective platforms. We will be talking about this on next week's webinar. It's on Tuesday next week. Stay tuned for the invitations. In fact, I think they're already out. I'm happy to welcome you for this particular session as well. Now, coming back to blockchain, let's try to understand blockchain as a concept itself. Now, what you see on this particular slide, let's start with the left. Let's see how social media has, within the last 5 years, just 5 years, I would say, just within the last 5 years, it has drastically transformed the way in which we consume news. Whether it's fake news or real news, that is a new threat that we're facing today. Let's park that point, but let's see how social media has changed the way we consume news. Why am I going to talk about this? Because this is a very, very simple illustration of the power of blockchain. In the early days, if you had to understand what's going on in the world around you, you had to subscribe to a newspaper. This had to be a print paper which will come to your house every morning. There are the respected press houses of the world, as well as every country, they have their own national newspapers. So whatever the newspaper prints on its headlines, even today, is considered to be the authentic source of news. With the advent of social media, all of that has been changed drastically. With social media, you or me, we have the power to become the news creators. We have the power to create news, to consume news, and to also circulate news, right? So we don't have to wait for the official press council authority of the respective country to come about and publish a press release or to make a particular individual famous. You and me, we have the power to tap into social media to do this. Why? Because social media, they provide one single platform which is decentralized. Technically, I wouldn't say it is entirely decentralized, which is supposed to be decentralized and visible to everybody all over the world. This is exactly what blockchain is seeking to achieve. Blockchain is considered to be a distributed, decentralized ledger. What is a ledger? Those of us who are from the financial background will easily understand. A ledger is a repository of transactions, most likely financial transactions. All the income as well as the outgo of a particular organization's bank accounts is what we put together in a ledger. Now, take this ledger, replace the financial transactions with transactions of your choice. In this particular case, news. So you put these transactions together, one on top of the other. You remove centralized control. So the press council of the particular country can be eliminated. You have one distributed ledger. Everybody sees what everybody sees. There is no delineation of users based on their roles, based on their access permissions, nothing like this. It is completely transparent to everybody. What you see is what I see. There is no change of the data. And the most important part, once data is going out on the blockchain, there is no way it can be changed. It's completely unalterable. Now, hold this point in your mind for a second, and we'll try to see one use case of blockchain from the music industry, okay? In the traditional music business, if you or me, we decide to become a music artist, what is the process that we will have to follow? We will have to approach a record label, like for example, Sony Music. Let's take the example. We will have to approach them. We will have to produce solid content. We will sign a contract with them. And we will, of course, produce content, which is music. This music will be published, will be marketed by this particular record label. Today, we have digital service providers as well, like, for example, Spotify, which is the Netflix of the music industry. You can also approach Spotify and tell them, you know what, Spotify, I've got some great songs. Why don't you publish them on your platform? We'll sign up a contract together. Now, in this particular ecosystem, there are some challenges. The first challenge is royalty. What is the concept of royalty? If you or me, we are a music artist and we have generated some songs, we have created some music, right? Every time someone is playing my song, whether it is through Sony Music or whether it is through Spotify, every time someone is playing it, I will have to be paid a small amount of royalty. This is how artists are supposed to make their money. This is how they're supposed to get incrementally wealthy. However, in the traditional ecosystem, this is not transparent to everybody. Royalty is not paid to artists, even when music is accessed from genuine content, from genuine platforms, sorry. A customer has walked up to a Sony Music store and he's purchased the songs and he's playing the song. Every time he plays it, is the artist going to get paid? No. This is a violation of the artist's right. The second problem is piracy. Piracy is a problem that is provided by the unwelcome guest, the music pirates of the world. They are always ready to steal music and publish it for free. This way, nobody gets paid. The record label doesn't get paid. The artist also doesn't get paid. This is the biggest problem that the music industry is being plagued by today. Now, consider the case that you decide as an artist to approach a service provider who is offering solutions built on blockchain. Both of these problems can be effectively addressed if you're going for blockchain. How does it work? In this particular case, you will sign a so-called smart contract with the record label. Now, a smart contract, it's not a regular paper-based contract. It's an application. You will provide a digital signature on this particular application, right? Once you sign it, of course, you know this, it cannot be removed. Your signature is protected by cryptography. By the way, if you wish to learn more about cryptography and hashing, we did a session on this last week on cryptography where we discussed in detail about hashing and cryptographic methodologies, part of CISSP syllabus. You will find the recording of this on our Ingram Micro YouTube channel, right? You will sign a digital signature on this particular smart contract. Not only that, your music that you create will be encoded within this smart contract as a digital file. Now, if anybody wants to access your music, they will have to go through this smart contract. Whether you're a filmmaker, whether you're a consumer, whether you are a music pirate, you will have to become a genuine user, authenticate yourself, and go through the smart contract. In the smart contract, you can track the users, you can track how many times they have played a particular song, and for every instance that the song is played, you will get paid royalty. Does this sound familiar to you? This is exactly what Netflix is all about. In Netflix, there is no concept of privacy because you will have to be a legitimate user who is accessing Netflix through a payment plan, and only through the platform can you play the movies, right? So in the same way, take the same concept and marry it to a music industry. Smart contract is actually transforming the way in which record labels are signing up contracts with artists. In fact, some artists, they prefer to move away from the traditional record labels and towards the blockchain-based record labels itself. This is just one industry use case that I gave you of blockchain. There are several others. When you think about the concept of blockchain, a distributed, decentralized ledger, think about the implications across industries. All the stakeholders can see all the transactions. In the case of healthcare, today the problem is when you're going to one hospital for many years, and for some reason you want to change your hospital, the new hospital, they will not have your patient health records from the previous hospital. Again, they'll make you take a lot of tests. Imagine that we have a centralized blockchain platform where all hospitals upload patient data. When patients migrate from one hospital to the other, the doctors can simply refer to this centralized platform. The entire history of the patient is available on this particular platform. Now, the question that you're asking in your mind is, but Praveen, what about privacy? What about protection of the identity of individuals? Because you're speaking about health information. This is a very, very valid question. We will talk about this as we come down towards the end of the session, because this privacy is, in fact, what is encouraging cyber criminals to access blockchain-based cryptocurrencies and make their payments. We'll come to this. Similarly, there are other use cases in the legal sector, logistics, as well as travel. Traditionally, when you're traveling, in fact, today, when you're traveling, you need to carry a lot of documents, your visas, your passports, travel, airline tickets, hotel reservations, etc., etc. Imagine all of these records are available on the blockchain and they can be accessed using simply one travel card. This makes life easier, not only for the passenger and the airline, but also for the government authorities, immigration, customs, all of these individuals, all of these departments. They can see in one central platform the entire aspects of a person's travel. So the question again comes to our mind, what about privacy? We will come to this. We will talk about privacy and how it is upheld when it comes to blockchain, okay? Cryptocurrencies, ladies and gentlemen, is just one implementation of the blockchain platform itself. We looked at several use cases now. We looked at the music sector. We looked at healthcare, travel, logistics. We looked at legal as well, right? Now, all of these are smart contracts or different implementations of blockchain frameworks. What is cryptocurrencies? Cryptocurrency is a concept where money is considered to be a virtual component. Now, the biggest problem that we have with money is record keeping. Where did this money come from? How did this particular individual get this money? Was it from a legitimate source? When he is paying somebody else, has he paid the appropriate taxes? Black money, white money, a lot of these problems are plaguing governments when it comes to financial transactions all over the world. Now, Satoshi Nakamoto, when he generated this concept of Bitcoin, what was his intention? He noticed in 2008, if you remember, ladies and gentlemen, the year in which he published the paper that I told you on the earlier slide was 2008. What is the year 2008 known for? The global financial crisis and the recession that organizations, corporations all over the world suffered from for many years after 2008. 2008 September is when Lehman Brothers collapsed, soon followed by the other major banks and financial corporations of the world. Nakamoto wanted to decentralize authority that was vested with financial corporations around the world. He wanted to remove the concentration of power with financial organizations. So he came up with the idea of the blockchain, wherein he said, he or she, by the way, wherein he said, let's get rid of the centralized authority and let's all talk to each other. Let's share our transactions with each other, senders, recipients, bank account holders, whatever it is. What if we get on a common blockchain platform and share transactions with each other? Now, here's the best part. We will not reveal our identities. We will not reveal our identities, which means I know that user XYZ has a financial bank balance of $100,000, but I just don't know who this person is. In fact, you cannot find out who this person is because of this beautiful concept called hashing. We'll talk about this when we come to the next section, where we'll talk about how a financial transaction, a Bitcoin financial transaction actually happens. So instead of physical coins, we have virtual money. Users are identified by their unique blockchain or Bitcoin IDs, in, for example, the case of Bitcoin. There is no centralized authority, which means there is no bank. In the concept of cryptocurrency, there is no need for a bank. And the authenticity and the integrity of transactions is lent by this process called mining. What is mining? I will explain this in more detail, but very, very quickly. Mining is a process where any transaction on the blockchain will get verified. Once a transaction is verified, only then can it be added as a successful member of a blockchain network. What is mining? How does it work? We'll talk about this in the next section. Today, Bitcoin is the most popular cryptocurrency, but rest assured, it's not the only one. There are other companies as well who have come out with their own cryptocurrencies, including, of course, the leading ones like Monero, Litecoin, Ripple, etc. Ethereum is this particular organization, by the way. It's more popular for smart contracts, similar to the one that we just saw in the music industry. Now, how does cryptocurrency compare with traditional banking? As of today, on the left column, you'll be very familiar with all the concepts I'm telling you. As of today, when you or me, we want to open a bank account, we will walk up to a bank, we will open a bank account, and we will put our full trust with this particular bank. Please take care of my money. Please let me perform financial transactions like receiving salary, sending out payments, etc., etc. So the transaction is, the relationship is founded on trust. The value of the currency is prone to volatility as well, of course. Transactions can be reversed. Transactions are discrete. You cannot assume full privacy because, of course, the bank knows who you are. They know how much money you have in your account. And they're also having an opinion about your financial health based on your credit score, your credit rating itself. Compare this with cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrencies are founded on cryptographic algorithms. It's built on cryptography, a subject that we reviewed in our webinar last week. The supply of cryptocurrencies, especially Bitcoins, is limited. You don't have infinite Bitcoins that you can generate over the period of time. In fact, it is limited, and we are expected to reach the limit by the year 2140, another 120 years. This is the way in which the algorithm has been written. 21 million Bitcoins, which will be depleted by the year 2140. Of course, in traditional banking, once you pay somebody, you can reverse the transaction. You can ask them to pay you the money back because it was, for example, a fraudulent transaction. In the world of cryptocurrencies, this is not possible. Once somebody gets paid, they are paid. You cannot get the money back. Think about the case of a cyber criminal. When you pay a cyber criminal ransom, it is as good as paying them forever. There is no way you can get your money back. This is one of the reasons why cyber criminals love the dark web. Love cryptocurrencies. We'll talk about this. Transactions are discrete because people cannot see financial transactions associated with each other's bank accounts. But in cryptocurrencies, your transactions are public. It's just that their identities are kept confidential. Real identities are always confidential. People are identified only by their Bitcoin IDs. Now, you've understood blockchain. You've also got a small flavor of cryptocurrencies. We're going to dig deeper into cryptocurrencies now, and we're going to see how cryptocurrencies assist cybercriminal transactions. This is the focus of this particular section. Again, ladies and gentlemen, any questions? Yes, please. If you have them, please type them into the chat. So how is blockchain, cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin interlinked with each other? How does it work? Thank you, Arvind, for this question. So in very, very simple terms, blockchain is a platform. It's a framework on which you can have multiple use cases. One use case is that of a smart contract. You can have a smart contract that is drawn up between, for example, a music artist, a record label, like, for example, Spotify, as well as a consumer. So there is no money or something like this which is involved in this in a smart contract, not necessarily. But smart contract is more like a legal agreement which is drawn out between individuals, but it's an application. It's a web application rather, not a paper-based contract. Cryptocurrency is one use case of blockchain where you are trying to transform the concept of money into a blockchain implementation itself. Money today, as you and me, we are familiar with it. It is generated by reserve banks. It is controlled by reserve banks or central banks of respective countries. And the supply, the value of the currency, of course, is controlled based on multiple factors. With Bitcoin, with cryptocurrencies, the supply is limited, and it is built on one central algorithm, one single algorithm, which was published by this individual called Satoshi Nakamoto. Cryptocurrencies, one particular example of cryptocurrency is Bitcoin. There are other cryptocurrencies as well, but Bitcoin today is a leading de facto example of a cryptocurrency itself. I hope this explains. So blockchain is a framework, cryptocurrency is one use case, Bitcoin is one example of a cryptocurrency. Okay. Another question from Arvind, can you please explain blockchain, how it started, how it works, different types or methodologies of it? So this is what I discussed in the previous section, Arvind, where we went through different use cases of blockchain and we try to understand what it is itself. I'll quickly recap. Consider a scenario where in your industry, no matter what industry it is, you are able to eliminate redundancies by simply allowing everybody to talk to each other. All the stakeholders can see the transactions pertaining to each other. It's just that their identities are kept confidential. If you're able to bring this concept to your respective industry, it can be a disruptor or a complete transformer of your respective industry. We spoke of examples of music, we spoke of legal, healthcare, and so on. I'll give you another example very quickly. Think about the education sector. Today, when many of us go back to our universities and we ask them, I need my degree transcripts. I graduated 10 years back, 20 years back, okay? The university, they have to go through the painful process of digging up records from 10, 15 years back and verifying the records, verifying our identity, and then finding out that, yes, this individual was a legitimate student, or no, this person was not a student of the university. Based on the findings, they have to give an attested document, which is your degree transcripts, attested degree transcripts. We will have to present these to multiple government organizations, maybe for applying for a visa for a specific country. Maybe for applying for a work permit, you need to get these degree transcripts. Now, degree transcripts, the validity, the authenticity of your degree transcripts, it is very, very variable in nature, depending upon which university, depending upon which country we are speaking about. Assume that the university has deployed a blockchain framework. What happens here is the academic records of all their students are put on a blockchain network. Okay. Anybody who wants to access their degree transcripts, they can come back no matter how many years later, make a request. Their old academic records are still prevalent on this particular network, no matter how many years old it is. Nobody can falsify these records. You can't go and fake your marks. When an individual failed on a particular subject, they can't go and get it changed on the degree transcripts because Any transaction on the blockchain is completely unalterable. Once it goes out there, it is set in stone, literally. You cannot change it. Okay, so this is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it is the recipients, they can request a specific key and can supply this particular key to the visa authority of the country that wants their degree transcripts. By simply using this key, the visa authority can access a blockchain and they can see that the verified transactions, the verified records pertaining to this particular individual's degree is available on the network. It is built on digital signatures. It is built on hashing. There is no way that it could have been faked. So without any possibility for fraud, the individual's degree transcripts can be verified within a matter of seconds by the visa authority itself. This is another example of blockchain. Today, this is not adopted in a large scale, but some countries have already started deploying it. Some universities have already started deploying it. Side note for you, countries like the UAE, especially with Dubai, Japan, Saudi Arabia, multiple countries in Europe have already started deploying blockchain projects into their government-initiated strategies, government-initiated strategic initiatives. In Japan, for example, they already want to use Bitcoin as an official currency. In Saudi Arabia, we have ATMs for Bitcoins, etc. In Dubai, we have a government strategy for blockchain itself to see where blockchain can transform government sectors, government-related industries and services to the citizens and residents of the country. Okay, now coming back to cryptocurrencies and their role in cybercrime. You've understood the concept of blockchain and how it has the power to transform sectors. Now let's understand cryptocurrencies in more detail. I want to explain to you the process in which a Bitcoin transaction actually happens. Why am I going to explain this to you? Because you're going to see how this is actually valuable to a cyber criminal who is operating on the dark web. We started with understanding the concept of the dark web. How is Bitcoin enabling cyber criminals operational on the dark web? How is it helping them to send and receive, in fact, receive money and send goods? Now, I told you that the blockchain is a distributed, decentralized ledger. When you map this concept to a cryptocurrency, you will have a particular framework, which is your blockchain framework, and you'll have multiple users or so-called nodes who are connecting to this framework, your distributed decentralized ledger. Now I'm representing here a series of blocks which are interlinked with each other. It's a simple representation of the transactions on a blockchain network itself. How do you add a new block to this particular network? How does a transaction work when it comes to cryptocurrencies? We'll try to understand here. Let's assume you have a cyber criminal on this particular machine and you have a ransomware victim on this particular machine. So what happens here is the victim will get a message on their laptop which tells them your files have been encrypted. Pay us just 5 Bitcoins, you will get your files back. 5 Bitcoins, by the way, is a lot of money, given that 1 Bitcoin is close to 9,000. It's just slightly over 9,000 USD as of today. So just pay us 5 Bitcoins within the next 1 week and you'll get your files back. This is a message that he gets. Not only that, he will also get a message which tells him, here is my Bitcoin ID. Now, you might ask yourself, when the cyber criminal is revealing their Bitcoin ID, isn't it easy to trace them? The answer is no. Like I said earlier, people who are transacting on cryptocurrencies, their identities are completely anonymous. For a cyber criminal, this is the de facto requirement. It's a default requirement. Their identity is completely anonymous. Now, how will the victim go about paying this particular cyber criminal? He or she, they have to download a so-called Bitcoin wallet. What is a Bitcoin wallet? You can see it over here. A Bitcoin wallet is an app that you and me, we can download from the Play Store, from the iOS App Store, no matter what it is. It is a genuine platform through which you and me can send and receive transactions using Bitcoins. Once you download the wallet, you will have to create a new address. For every transaction, it is recommended that you create a new address. What is an address? It is nothing but a public and private key pair. Now, last week's class, we spoke about cryptography. We spoke about symmetric and asymmetric encryption. In asymmetric encryption, you have a public as well as a private key pair. When someone wants to send a message to somebody else, they will generate a public-private key pair, and they will share this public key to their recipient. Anybody can access a public key. The recipient will encrypt the message with the public key and send it back to the original person. The original person, to decrypt the message, he will use the private key. You cannot decrypt it with the public key. This is the concept of asymmetric encryption, and we spoke about it in last week's training. We will be reviewing it in our ongoing trainings as well. So for every transaction, you will generate a new address, which is nothing but a public and private key pair. Now, what happens is the victim will create a new transaction which says, I'm going to pay this particular cyber criminal 5 Bitcoins. He will generate this particular transaction and he will share the public key with the cyber criminal. The cyber criminal will encrypt it with the private key and send it back to the victim itself. In this way, a new transaction is initiated, and this new transaction will now be going through another process that is called hashing. What really is hashing? When I mentioned earlier that transactions cannot be reversed once they come on the blockchain, I explained to you that the reason is something called hashing. What is hashing? Hashing is a mathematical function. What happens in hashing is, no matter how big the input file is, the output will always have a fixed length. You can send a file which is a 3 GB movie or a 64 KB notepad file, but the output will always be a fixed length. But the most important property of hashing is from the output, you can never get the input back. It's a one-way function, right? The transaction, which is the ransomware victim, is paying the cyber criminal 5 Bitcoin. This particular transaction is what you see over here. Let's say it is transaction number 1. In parallel, other transactions are also happening. There are other people who are sending and receiving payments as well. So you have transaction 2, 3, 4, and so on. These transactions will all be hashed, which means from the hash value, you cannot get the original transaction. After hashing, they will be coupled together. So hash 1 and hash 2 will get coupled together to form hash 1, 2. Similarly, hash 3 and hash 4 will get hashed together to form hash 3, 4. And then these two hashes, they will get coupled together to form hash 1, 2, 3, 4. Every layer, you will be doing one more level of hashing. Multiple levels of hashing, which means you cannot go back and get the original transaction. When you get all of these transactions coupled together, in fact, every 10 minutes, in every 10-minute window, all the transactions that are initiated, they will be coupled together and hashed multiple times over and over again, like you just saw. When you combine all of these transactions together, you will get a new block. This block is what I'm showing you over here, is a red color block. Okay. Now it is not so straightforward. You cannot add the block so immediately to the blockchain itself. You will have to pass it through what we call mining. That block has to be verified that it is a legitimate block. Mining is where the real money is to be made when it comes to blockchain or cryptocurrencies. You and me, we can become Bitcoin miners. All we need is a lot of RAM, a lot of computing power, and some knowledge of cryptography. What we have to do here is every time this new tentative block is created, we will have to pass it through a process through a cryptographic process where the output has a specific number of ones and zeros. We'll have to hash it such that the output has a specific number of ones and zeros. The person who is able to successfully achieve that target number of ones, target number of zeros, he or she has successfully mined the block. Okay, and he'll have to record the fact that he has mined the block. This is what we call the proof of work. So this proof of work plus the hash of the previous block will all get coupled with this new tentative block. Only then will the block be added to the blockchain. Sometimes it can take days to complete the process of mining because it's a very, very resource intensive process. But why do people do mining? Why do individuals do mining? Ladies and gentlemen, I told you, the supply of Bitcoins is limited to 21 million Bitcoins to be reached by the year 2140. If you are able to successfully mine a block, new Bitcoins will be generated. You will be paid in transaction fees. And also a portion of those newly generated Bitcoins will be sent over to your account if you are a Bitcoin miner. This is where miners can make money. And as you know, one Bitcoin is above $9,000. Even if you're getting a portion of it, it's solid money. All you need to do is successfully mine blocks. I know that the last 5 minutes was a little confusing because we spoke at length about cryptography and hashing. So I will recap. I'll repeat it once again. When a ransomware victim has to pay a cyber criminal 5 Bitcoins in this particular case, both of them will have to have the Bitcoin wallets. Okay. The cyber criminal, he already has the wallet and he's already shared his Bitcoin address. And he'll tell the victim, please pay to this particular address. Now, the victim, he will have to download a Bitcoin wallet if he doesn't have it already, and he will create a new address. From this address, he has to now pay the cyber criminal, right? Asymmetric cryptography comes into the picture, and the transaction is supposed to be encrypted, and a new transaction is initiated, which is what we call here as hash 1. At the same time, other transactions are also happening on this simple peer-to-peer network of the Bitcoin itself, the Bitcoin network itself. These transactions are all uniquely hashed and they're coupled together like you see over here. This coupling is what we call the Merkle tree of transactions because it looks a little bit like a tree. Think about it. So all the transactions every 10 minutes, they get coupled together and they get hashed multiple times over. Now, you have a new block, which is let's say a candidate block or a tentative block. Now, this particular block has to be mined successfully. This is where Bitcoin miners, they come into the picture. They compete with each other to successfully mine this block. What do I mean by mining? Mining is when they are passing this block through a cryptographic function. Again, it is hashing, such that the output has a specific number of ones and zeros. Who defines this ones and zeros? It is the algorithm. Okay. The cryptographic algorithm of Bitcoin itself will define for this particular transaction, we need this many ones and this many zeros in this particular format. So they will have to add something called a nonce, which is similar to salting. Salt, again, you will be familiar with it if you're familiar with the concept of hash. The miners will have to vary the input nonce or so-called salt such that the output matches the target pattern of ones and zeros. Once this is done, they can prove that, yes, we have successfully mined the block. We have successfully solved the cryptographic algorithm. They need to add this proof of work to this block. Not only that, they will have to add the hash value of the most recent block, which is in this case a yellow block. They'll have to add that as well. All of this is coupled with the latest block. In this way, a new block will get added to the blockchain network, which is this red block that you see over here. Like I said earlier, hashing is one way. It cannot be reversed, which means if your transaction is added here, the victim has paid the cyber criminal. Even if you find out later who the cyber criminal is, you cannot make them pay you the money back. You'll have to get a new transaction. You cannot reverse the old transaction because hashing is one way. You saw how many layers of hashing we did over here. You cannot reverse engineer these different layers and go back and undo specific transactions. This is why cyber criminals love Bitcoins. They love cryptocurrencies because once you pay them, you have paid them for good. There is no way you can get that money back. Not only that, they are completely anonymous. They are known only by their Bitcoin IDs that you saw over here. You cannot go back and pinpoint and say that, yes, the person who is behind this ID, it is individual XYZ. You cannot, because their identities are completely protected. Not only that, it is completely permissionless. What do I mean by this? Let me explain over here. As a cyber criminal, you have multiple benefits if you are transacting on cryptocurrencies, like, for example, blockchain, like, for example, Bitcoins. First of all, anonymity, because like I just highlighted, you are identified only by your Bitcoin ID. Your real identity is 100% confidential. You cannot go back and find out who the person is. Secondly, it is permissionless. If you are, for example, the unfortunate victim of a traditional banking-based cyber attack, money is being transferred from your bank account to some bank account which is opened up in another country. In this case, people have to walk up to this other bank account. The cyber criminals have to walk up to this other bank. They have to submit legitimate documents, government identifying documents, like address proof, identity proof, etc. And only then can they open up the bank account. They open the bank account, they steal money from their victims' accounts, transfer it to their respective accounts, and then they extract the money using ATM machines, and then they flee. Only at this point will they find out that the documents that they submitted were bogus documents. Many of the cyber criminal attacks, we see this particular pattern happening. This is the problem with traditional banking-based cybercrime. For a cyber criminal, they need to generate bogus documents. But when it comes to blockchain or cryptocurrency based fraud, they don't need to produce any documents. Anybody can create an identity, can create an account on a Bitcoin wallet, and they can start sending and receiving payments, which means it is completely permissionless. Even the biggest cyber criminals, they can go about creating as many accounts as they want, as many wallets as they want, and Bitcoin addresses, and start receiving payments. No restrictions. It is completely decentralized, which means there is no central authority to monitor the transactions, to send and receive the transactions. Think about, for example, Swift payment network that we have today. If you're, for example, transferring money from your bank account in the UAE to another country, for example, India, it will be a Swift transfer that you're going to do, a Swift fund transfer, and the transaction has to be verified by the Swift payment network. Only once it passes all the checks and balances will the transaction be completed. This verification process, the central monitoring authority, is not present when it comes to cryptocurrencies. It is built on math. It is verified by math. There is no central government authority who is tracking and monitoring the transactions. And the most important part, transactions cannot be reversed because they are based on hashing. Hashing is a one-way function. Once someone gets paid, they are paid for good. Ladies and gentlemen, on this particular slide, I'm showing you real screenshots of the outcome of cyber criminals who have been operational on the dark web itself. This particular screen is a famous WannaCry screen that individuals were faced with when their machines were victims of the largest ransomware attack in the history of the world. 235,000 computers in May of 2017 were infected when WannaCry swept over the globe, infecting people and denying them access to their legitimate files. So here you see the messages that says, your important files have been encrypted. They are no longer accessible because they've been encrypted. You can verify that you can decrypt a portion of your files, but what you need to do to get your full access, you need to pay. You need to pay us by within the next 3 days. And how are you going to pay us? Bitcoin is accepted. Here is my Bitcoin address, the address that I was telling you about all this while. This is the address. There is no way of identifying who the person is behind this particular address because it's built on hashing. But just to let you know, I think last year, US government authorities have actually identified that WannaCry originated from one of the rogue nations of the world, which is North Korea. Silk Road is the largest marketplace on the dark web, famous for all banned substances, goods, and services, including counterfeit contraband substances, counterfeit notes, fake passports, currency notes, cloned payment cards, etc., etc. If your username and password is hacked, for example, what you need to do is make sure that it's not available on the dark web for sale, for example, on a website like Silk Road. Stolen usernames, passwords, etc. All of these can be purchased for as little as $1 or $2 on the dark web. All of these are, of course, the activities of cyber criminals. And what you see over here is they are accepting payments in Bitcoins, Bitcoin 31, Bitcoin 2, whatever it is, for these materials, for these banned and completely illegal materials. Cyber criminals are anonymous. They're operating in a permissionless environment. Transactions are unalterable. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope I was able to open up your eyes to the world of cybercrime and how blockchain, Bitcoins, and cryptocurrencies are actually helping cyber criminals to further their economies through the dark web itself. This is not to say that blockchain Bitcoin is completely wrong, that it is completely evil. This is absolutely not the case. We saw multiple use cases where blockchain can serve as a holistic disruptor of sectors itself. Whether you're in banking, whether you're in the entertainment sector for music and whatnot, healthcare, hospitality, transport, logistics, real estate, legal, all of these sectors, they stand to benefit massively from blockchain. Cryptocurrencies, they hold a lot of promise for the future. It's just that for every coin, there are two sides, the good as well as the bad. Technology started with increasing automation, increasing innovation. It was just a matter of time before security became a de facto requirement of technology today. Similarly, with cryptocurrencies as well, there is a negative side to it, which is what you need to be aware of. How can you protect your organizations? You need to ensure, first of all, that the people of your organization are enabled, they are aware of the footprint that cyber criminals are leaving across their organizations, the impact that they can take when it comes to, that they can produce when it comes to securing the data of your organization. Training is extremely important. You must invest in DLP solutions to ensure that your organizational data is not ending up on those dark web platforms that we saw earlier. You must ensure that you're monitoring the dark web as well to ensure that your adversaries, the potential threat agents, the potential threat actors, you are familiar with what they're going to do even before they launch their attacks. How can you do this? For training, Ingram Micro Cybersecurity is your one-stop shop. We have a holistic set of trainings across cybersecurity as well as privacy. We have some of the best trainers in the Middle East region. We have the best accreditations, the best certifications, and the best experience that you can ask for. So talk to us if you want to have any related cybersecurity trainings. We can provide these for you. When it comes to DLP solutions, I'm just showing you some indicative solutions from the houses of Broadcom, Forcepoint, as well as McAfee, the leading DLP solution vendors all over the world. We distribute their solutions, we distribute their products. Talk to us and we can get these solutions deployed for you. And for monitoring the dark web, like I said, threat hunting, managed detection and response, these services are offered by solutions from the houses of Kaspersky, FireEye, again, Broadcom, as well as AT&T Cybersecurity, all leading vendors that we are distributing across the region itself. And again, to reiterate, Ingram Micro Cybersecurity, we offer holistic solutions across people, processes, as well as technologies. We have trainings, consultancies, managed security services, as well as technical assessments. And we distribute solutions from all leading cybersecurity vendors all over the Middle East, Turkey, as well as Africa region. Not only this, we have also developed a suite of in-house cybersecurity solutions, starting with discovery, a simple service where we will identify any information pertaining to your organization out there on the internet, including the dark web, information that can be useful for a cyber criminal to launch an attack against your organization. We also offer CyberCrime, which is a simple 10-minute self-assessment tool on your organization's security posture. We also offer free cybersecurity trainings, and we have a virtual lab where we can deploy POCs, technical demos, or enable you to leverage trainings of cybersecurity technology solutions from the houses of ATEN, Aruba, Alienwald, or AT&T Cybersecurity, etc. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings me to the close of today's training. Any questions that you have, feel free, please, to type them into the chat window. Okay, there's a great question here from Manish. Who pays the miner itself? Is it the cyber criminal for mining Bitcoins? Okay, so thank you so much, Manish, for this question, amazing question. So what is the incentive in becoming a Bitcoin miner? This is in fact the question for the larger context of Manish's question, and how does the miner get paid? The way in which the Bitcoin algorithm is written by Satoshi Nakamoto. So there are multiple entities. There are the senders as well as the recipients of payments, but then there are Bitcoin miners. What is the incentive in becoming a miner? Every time someone is successfully mining a particular block or a transaction, new Bitcoins are going to be generated. The supply of these new Bitcoins is finite. It's not infinite, okay? We can have as many as 21 million Bitcoins, which are expected to be depleted by the year 2140. So the algorithm itself will generate these new Bitcoins. The algorithm will control the supply of these new Bitcoins. The algorithm will regulate the value thereby of the Bitcoins itself by controlling the supply. Every time someone is successfully mining a block, some of these Bitcoins will be credited to their account. Not only that, they will also be paid a transaction fee or a so-called service fees for mining the entire block itself. So the Bitcoin miners will be paid by the algorithm. Manish, this is the short answer to your question. This is the incentive towards becoming a miner, because you will get paid by the new Bitcoins that you are generating. These new Bitcoins will be added to the regular supply chain, as well as will be added to your account. Some portion of it will be added to your account. So you'll be paid by the algorithm. I hope that helped. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Feel free to type them into the chat. If not, let me thank you once again from the team of Ingram Micro Cybersecurity based here in Dubai. Let me remind you again, if you have any cybersecurity training, consultancies, or incident response services, feel free to talk to us. We are here to support you. We are here to help you to overcome your cybersecurity challenges. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for your attention. I hope you enjoyed the session. Have an excellent rest of your days. Thank you so much.